Do 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 do. Extras.
So for the first time in a long time, we've added a new player to the party, which seems a little odd, given we have so many NPCs that most are getting 0 screen time, but boom, Krillidin. Launchpad1979, his Twitter handle, is an old friend of Quill18 and, I think, Little One? He's a much more serious programmer than I was, even before Operation Awesome Unemployment. And we've had a lot of fun on board game nights while our D&D campaigns have been on really long hiatus. So when Krillidin joined, right at the beginning of what became the Week of Hell in TDDC, I was pretty early into making TDDC videos. I think we were midway through Ginneron, so he had some familiarity with the world and with the party. But if you go watch like episode 9 or something, and then skip to episode 51, there was a whole lot of stuff he missed in between. Fortunately, only a small fraction of it mattered in the short term since they were now all isolated and stuck into Shadowfell. He was a little bit on the quiet side for the first couple of sessions, jumping into this long-established group, but he still gets some fun lines in, and he shoots real good. The character is a half-elf arcane archer, half Eladrin in our setting since it does make a little difference. The prestige class, right out of the DMG, isn't super strong, but it does give him some fun tricks, and it didn't cost much to get into. He's light on the arcane side, very heavy on the fighter, so he has a ton of feats, and when picking out his starting gear, with the significant wealth of a level 13 or 14, whatever they are, character, he picked up that crazy Bow of Splitting mod. It's a +3 weapon modifier, so it's very expensive, but as seen in the video, it basically doubles his shots, including doubling any other buffs or any spell that he stores in an arrow using his class features. So if he stores a Hail of Stone spell in an arrow, 5d4 damage in a 5-foot radius, he could hit the target with 10d4 worth of magic rocks. And, an arrow. Anyway, spoilers, that splitting power is going to get nerfed because it's super powerful. A +3 mod is expensive, but it's still a friggin' bargain for what is effectively ×2 damage on a high-level character. But the fun part for you is trying to guess how long we let that thing stand as is before nerfing it. As for how he ended up into Shadowfell, I think I'm going to leave that for episode 52. Shadow maps. Yes, we finally got some more maps of the Shadowfell. If you were watching carefully, there was a wide map of the continent showing most of the borders of the Vampire Kings. But later we get a closer map with more actual terrain features, because that's the information the party had to help their decisions. Though in their case it was pencil scribbles over a bad photocopy of the map of Vistria. Of course, because the original map was scribbles on a photocopy, and because as we played there were a lot of rough estimated distances and travel times, making this new map both look better and attempt to reconcile all those times and distances is a real pain, and will definitely be fudgy in spots as the Week of Hell progresses, so please don't complain when their travel doesn't exactly match the scale. Anticipating some of your other questions, no, I have not mapped out all the shackles, even for the Swain/Cornello area. Realistically, that's a lot of work, and while it would be nice in places to be able to use that information, on the other hand, not having them mapped leaves me a lot more flexibility in the future. Yes, that does mean the node map I use sometimes when talking about shackles is purely abstract. And no, most of them don't have a huge mountain protecting them. There are a lot of smaller caves, trenches, obelisks, forgotten pools, and hidden valleys, stuff like that, many of which are protected in ways other than big dungeons. On the large map, their territories vary tremendously in size, but not all areas are equal in terms of the quality and quantity of spirits which are suitable for shackles. As seen previously, Cornello rules the Arctic continent, but like in most Civilization games, the pole is pretty poor land. I have apparently mixed up Hastings and Lockhart a lot in my head, but somehow I think I may have gotten them right the few places they come up in the videos. Lockhart has the vast eastern territory, much of which is low quality, but he's doing quite well overall. He's also the one with the hat. Hastings has been beaten down somewhat, but he possesses the area labeled as the Cauldron, which corresponds to the Iron Sea, the ancient Fadelands home of the dwarves. The Cauldron is home to a pantheon of very powerful spirit shackles, which have proven extremely hard to take from him, and which have allowed him to hold out against Alyssa and Lockhart. What's in the bad place? Bad stuff. Duh. I do really like the opportunity to do these bad guy vision segments in videos, showing things the player couldn't reasonably see in-game. Definitely not chronologically. I may have told them junk after the fact. Up until now, I have virtually never done it outside of post-credit scenes, though there was that quick flash over the Kuo-toa sniper when they killed that weak-ass monitor. But I liked the idea of showing that Swain was hanging around to guard the maze, at least for a while, adding some tension whenever Little One suggested doubling back for it. Also, I figured people want more Swain. I also liked getting in the discussion at the end, though, to show how Swain reacted to being called out for his minion's theft. The Hazamura stuff, of course, was just a little bit more fun. That whole discussion was cut down in the video because, honestly, there was a bunch of exposition that you'd already heard or that really didn't go anywhere or was redundant with other information we already have. There was actually some question of whether the Rajas had been wrong to suggest the whole rescue run, given how it had gotten the party into trouble with Swain and Stuck. Lady Hazamura was quick to point out preemptively that it was over a month ago when the Rajas had last suggested this plan, and that things had changed enough in between that, had the party contacted them before leaving, they would have advised against it. Their excuse, for what it's worth, is that Vampire Kings are very powerful, very divination-resistant beings. The power of the Fate Matrix can still be very useful for major and long-term trends, but trying to predict what Swain would be doing in a month and where is a dubious proposition. It's like the difference between predicting the changes in overall climate versus the long-term weather forecast. Anyhow, according to her, if the players had gone soon after she told them about Zahir's transfer, particularly if they'd been in time to rescue him before he reached Mount Pillar, there would have been little chance of encountering Swain. Send the bolts away? Keen observers might have noticed Little One suggesting once that they should send away not only the NPCs but also the named Vampire King bolts. I kept that in intentionally, mostly as a hook for more explanation here, but the episode was already all discuss position, and I didn't think focusing on this part would help. But there was a line of discussion amongst the party for a while about the risks of keeping the bolts with them. Swain, having read Mora's memories, or at least her surface thoughts, some of which were presumed to include, "We have a special bolt for this guy," probably knows about the existence of the ancient Ataran artifact bolts now, including the one with his name on it. Assuming the bolts are any good, which they are assuming, though obviously we still don't know for sure, if one of the kings were to get a hold of the set, they might use them to gain the upper hand. Draven was sympathetic to this concern, but overall, the bolts are stored in an extra-dimensional compartment of the artifact crossbow, and if they're in a situation where a vampire king is stealing the crossbow out of Draven's hands, they're probably screwed anyway, so better to retain the option of using the bolts themselves, especially, if Swain catches up with them. Couldn't Draven just recast Ethereal Mount? Well, the spell-storing item Artificer Infusion is up to 4th level, so in reality, yes. But the real explanation is that although it is an official spell, and I used that in the video so I wouldn't have to explain this until this extras, in practice, we didn't know about that spell, or I at least had forgotten, and in the actual game session, I had described it as a 5th level spell, which I had made up, called Phantasmal Mount Mass, which happened to be nearly identical, except mine was 1 mount per level, instead of 1 plus 1 per 2 levels. So, using that made-up spell, it was both too high level for the standard Artificer on-the-fly scroll-making infusion, and it also sounded like a rare, non-official spell, which he might therefore need to research and or to level up in order to learn it himself. Other than the level difference, the differences between Ethereal Mount and my homemade version were so minor that it was much less confusing to just use the official spell in the video. And in the actual session, they didn't use the extra mounts anyway, since Zahir and Black Dad could only ride as passengers due to their health, and they didn't bring a spare for Krillodin because, back at the mountain, the party weren't planning on recruiting anyone. You're watching this extras early because you're a Patreon patron. It's all of you who have made Operation Awesome Unemployment a reality for me. I'm supposed to do an episode every 4 to 6 weeks now. This took 6, and I don't think it was really a 6-week episode, so I'm trying to do better next time. But this is also your chance to ask any extra questions about this or previous episodes. I'll try to answer what I can, and a bunch of them into the final video that goes up for everyone on YouTube. Thanks so much for your continued support, with a special shout out to Thermordu, Evrillius, Bedimir, Bigren, Carlin, Corlin, Dimmin, Zombie, Dustbar, and the Earl of Sanguine, Fright Night, Fireborn, Git Hype, Gorfiend, Greenmute, Hakoon, John, and 9. Jerry, Beansman, Leah, Crolonito, and Lord Avon, Malice, Zendesh, MG3D, OI1, and Oldenman, Onvir, Pedrig, Avruni, Pontus, Remar, Ulfis, Sandaman, Starfall, Arkan, Surf USA, Tambu, June, and Valis, Volkfang, Brethren, Warsaw, Woodley, and now I am out of breath. The members of the organization.